So I started a couple of days ago to read you some advice that Senchab Serkong Rinpoche had given at the conclusion of a teaching. So I wanted to continue with that. The noise in the background, you might think that Chicken Little was right and the sky is falling, but actually the Abbey is getting a new roof. So we're just in competition with them. Okay, but to continue reading here. You have to follow a very difficult path to awakening, says Senchab Rinpoche. We hear of examples of great practitioners in Tibet who might have had to go for 6 or 7 days without food and who meditated diligently in very difficult circumstances, living in caves for many years, sitting on the ground or on rocks. When studying, some practitioners had very poor food and hardly anything to drink, and they had to undergo a tremendous amount of difficulties. But they didn't have the noise, the sky falling above them. But as a result of continuing their studies, despite these conditions, they were able to achieve the highest insights and realizations. Okay, so we read of all these practitioners. You know, you read Milarepa's biography, you read of the lives of, you know, even more modern masters and the difficulties they've had to go to. And you see their perseverance in actually accomplishing the path. And when we read this, it gives you some energy like, well, if they can go through that, then I can go through it. Okay? Or sometimes, depending on the state of your mind, you read that and you say, oh, if I have to go through that, then forget it. You know? It's so interesting how our mind is so unpredictable. You could read the same thing and come out of it with two exactly opposite conclusions. Okay? Rinpoche says, now all of us here are very fortunate. We don't have to undergo all of those difficulties. Okay, so he's leading us to one conclusion here. Yeah? This is a result of our previous accumulation of great merit that we are able to practice in a comfortable situation. So because in previous lives we did a lot of virtuous activities, accumulated a lot of merit, then we find ourselves able to practice in a very pleasant surrounding. We have enough food, we have a soft bed, you know, we aren't living in a cave, we aren't having scorpions drop on us, you know. So this is a result of our good karma in the past. So it's something definitely to rejoice at. But we should also make good use of it and not just take it for granted. Okay. In these circumstances that we have obtained by means of our virtuous merit created in the past, practicing even for a few hours for the benefit of others will be extremely beneficial. Okay? So even if we don't practice all day and all night like these great meditators of the past, you know, if we practice even for a few hours every day, it's still extremely beneficial. I mean, especially considered the good circumstances we have. Like right now, you know, we're all about to get on an airplane tomorrow and fly to DC for Kalachakra. And we go, oh, the airplane ride is so long. And DC is going to be so hot and humid, and there's going to be so many people there, and we're going to have to stand in line to get into the teachings, and they're going to last a long time, you know, when I need to go to the bathroom instead. But if you look at it, you know, I mean, what kind of hardship is this compared to what meditators and Dharma practitioners who really got into their studies in the past went through? I mean, they didn't have food, they didn't have drink, like Rinpoche was saying. You know, they lived in very cold or very difficult situations, but they really persevered, and they didn't let their mind get overwhelmed by the difficulties. Yeah, so for them, the difficulties we face are like a pleasure grove, you know, but yet we complain about them, you know. But it's amazing if you think about what people went through to bring Buddhism into Tibet, into China, into, you know, other countries. It's just amazing. I mean, people lost their lives crossing over the Himalayas or the Kalachakra mountains on foot, or across the Gobi Desert by foot. And it took them years. It wasn't a 6-hour plane ride, okay? So, you know, I mean, when we think of people, the determination people in the past had, then we should kind of uplift our mind and see that you know, see that it is actually possible to do this. And it all depends on our way of thinking, you know, because depending on how we think, the hugest obstacle can be nothing, or the tiniest little thing can be a huge obstacle. And it's not an objective reality. It's completely according to how we're looking at it. Yeah? Okay. We should know that in this age of deterioration, if we make effort for even 2 or 3 hours to practice for the benefit of others, the power of the merit is much greater than when the hearers and so on practiced during the time of the Buddha. Okay? So during the time of the Buddha, it's said that it was much easier to practice. I mean, the Buddha was right there. And whereas now it's more difficult. So any practice we do now, the merit is heavier than doing the same practice at the time of the Buddha when the conditions were easier. You know, in the same way, keeping precepts now is, they say, is of much greater merit than keeping them at the time of the Buddha when it was much easier. Okay, so we'll stop here and then we'll continue on tomorrow.